Employers in the US are experiencing an unprecedented labor shortage. Supply chains are also facing slowdowns all around the country. Vaccine mandates have left some employers with no other option than to fire workers who refuse to get vaccinated against COVID-19, leaving even more open positions. Not to mention the virus itself, which has killed an estimated 750,000 people in the US alone.
We have to recognize that one of the reasons why some folks are hesitant to go back to work is because they're afraid. They're afraid about catching the virus.
A hot job market is also adding to the pressure, especially for critical in-person jobs in healthcare, policing, and education. Some states have turned to the National Guard to fill in the gaps.
A sight most parents likely never thought they'd see. The Massachusetts National Guard driving transport vans to get kids to school. A sign of how dire the worker shortage in the education system continues to be.
But we also do see other senior Guard leaders pushing back on some of these second-order pandemic-linked missions.
25,900 National Guard personnel are currently supporting domestic operations. The federal government has also reportedly looked at how the National Guard could be used to alleviate the supply chain crunch across the nation, something that not all observers think will help.
They might do a little bit around the edges, but it's not gonna solve the issue.
Is it a smart move for the economy to use the military as a stopgap to buy time for a long-term solution? The United States has a unique military system due to the federalized nature of the country. Along with national military branches, each state government and some territories, such as DC and Puerto Rico, have their own state-specific National Guard organization. These separate National Guard organizations can call up members on state orders or federal orders to react to events such as war and natural disaster. Today, some states are using National Guard personnel to fill in labor gaps. In Oregon, New York, California, and other states, the Guard has been called upon to staff medical facilities to make up for shortfalls throughout the pandemic. In Massachusetts, the Guard are being used to process COVID tests. Nationwide, there are still over 11,500 National Guard members supporting COVID operations, and 26,000 National Guard personnel were activated after the January 6th insurrection to provide security around the Capitol. The Guard was heavily used during the demonstrations in the summer of 2020 to help local police maintain order in some cities. And some states, most notably Texas, have sent Guard contingents to the border with Mexico to help law enforcement with controversial border missions. Use of the Guard isn't without a cost. Some of these missions can put a strain on keeping personnel in the National Guard, and they can also put a huge strain on equipment, which can incur future costs down the road.
If you have equipment that keeps staying on the road for stuff like PPE distribution or vaccine distribution and wildfire fighting, that you've got to refit your equipment at some point. And that also is going to cost more money that would normally be allocated to maintenance and stuff that's meant to support the Guard's federal mission.
Most National Guard troops are part-time soldiers that hold other full-time jobs in the communities that they live in, which means that moving them into short-filled positions could open another labor gap in the economy.
Communities, frankly, might not notice that their guardsmen are gone, but who does is employers. No matter what your job is, if you get pulled from it to go and do something, they're going to notice. Whether you volunteered for it or whether you were involuntarily mobilized, there's concern that the cumulative impact on employers could lead to Guard troops being chronically underemployed, perhaps in some cases becoming unemployed should federal or state employment protections not prove sufficient.
Meanwhile, jobs in the United States are going unfilled. The combination of the so-called Great Resignation, record purchasing from consumers, and the fallout from the pandemic have resulted in a discombobulated economic situation.
You've got two things going on at once. You've got people leaving. If it's 50% now, you're backfilling. Half of those jobs are people who've left, and the other half may be new jobs.
Some of these are high-skilled positions like nurses or medical technicians. And they are not only in high demand due to a shortage of trained applicants, but also because of the waves of COVID-19 in various states that have pushed some healthcare systems to the brink.
If you're somebody who perhaps has a pre-existing condition, you're caring for somebody who has an additional vulnerability to coronavirus, you're going to be much more hesitant to go out and try to work if you don't feel safe. So again, controlling the pandemic is number one to ending these supply chain disruptions.
Other jobs that take less time to train up suitable candidates, such as driving buses for public schools, have also been filled with hundreds of National Guard troops on state orders. Police and corrections officers have been deeply affected by COVID-19 deaths and also by employment gaps caused by vaccine mandates. Prisons and jails, in part due to the tight confines, have become hot zones for the virus to spread, which makes an already hazardous job even less appealing to those on the job hunt. The National Guard is one option that has been used in Massachusetts to fill in this shortage, and it's been floated as a potential option in Arizona. Guardsmen have also been deployed to the border to help with controversial immigration and border control missions. The problems in the US that are causing the labor shortage and also the supply chain crunch are complex.
There are immediate pressures to try to fix this, or again, to look like you're fixing it.
Typically in previous expansions like this, you get not only increases in compensation, but you also get employers changing their attitudes or their perceptions or views about who's employable.
I mean, normally when you see an unemployment rate like this, you expect to see slow wage growth. It's very strange to see fast wage growth at a time of still elevated unemployment. That's what tells us that the problem is labor supply.
Using the National Guard for too many state and federal missions could create problems for service members who are maintaining other careers while serving in what is advertised as a part-time role. Other policy positions may be better long-term options to ease the supply chain crunch and harden the system against future shocks.
Maybe getting the virus behind us, revving up the economic engine of the United States to full RPM so we can produce and import and ship all those goods that people want. And we'll get there by putting people back to work.
The National Guard isn't being sent to help with unloading cargo at ports yet, but the problems the supply chain is experiencing haven't been solved.
Things are starting to flow. Maybe some semiconductors are arriving a little bit faster than they used to. That's there. Still a lot of ships off the coast of LA.
Exact same issues that plague much of our supply chains globally affect domestic supply chains too.
When it comes to the nitty-gritty of actually trying to unspool a problem like that, things like training and safety issues come to mind. How many people able to operate port mega cranes are currently sitting in the California Guard, for example? It could be none. It could be way more than none. It's really hard to know that until you're there trying to figure it out, or they're trying to actually plan the mission. There's some things where the cost benefit for using the Guard just might not be there.
First, let's just look at the infrastructure bill. That bill has a total of $1.2 trillion that will be spent over the next 10 years. It's going to make fundamental improvements to our nation's infrastructure.
The Biden administration is trying to tackle these front and center issues in the run-up to the 2022 midterm elections.
The Biden administration's economic policies, and that includes both the American Rescue Plan, the $1.9 trillion that was passed in March of this year, have given workers a lot more opportunity to go out and find jobs that have higher pay and better benefits. What that means is that Americans are having to compete for workers in a way that they weren't previously.
The current workload for the Guard across the nation could also result in unintended consequences for the various National Guard organizations.
Between trying to answer for federal deployments and missions, increased training schedules, even if they're not deploying, and then a veritable flood of state missions over the past 18 months, be them for the pandemic, be it for civil disturbance response, be it for storm response, be it for wildfire response, or if they're one of the thousands of troops who have been put along the southwest border now. It adds up. And, we don't have a great handle on what all of those effects might be.